Hello. Today, briefly today, yesterday went just too long. I'm terribly sorry to keep so many of you away from important things. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about Magic Without Tears. And uh, it's a book that not many people have because not that it hasn't been printed for a number of years in various editions. I think Llewellyn published a beautiful, beautiful, huge, kind of oversized edition back in 1973. And this is a Falcon Press or a Falcon Press Publications edition, and they've been printing one in 82 and 3 and 6 and 87 and 89. So they're out there. A definitive, super organized, super scholarly and annotated version has been in the works for a number of years. Uh, but unfortunately, that edition isn't out yet. And so people are kind of left scrambling, trying to find a used paperback edition and things like that at a reasonable collector's price or anything. I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but I am going to at least whet your appetite uh, for the magical treasures that are in this book. And instead of me trying to explain everything, let's let Carl Germer himself, uh, who wrote this little foreword here in 1954. This is Carl Germer in 1954. In 1943, Aleister Crowley met a lady who, having heard of his wide knowledge and experience, asked his advice on occult, spiritual, and practical matters. This chance connection resulted in a stimulating exchange of letters. Crowley then asked others to put similar questions to him. The result was this collection of over 80 letters, which are now being issued over the title that he chose. And he chose another title besides Magic Without Tears, actually. So this is being issued as Magic Without Tears, but he had another title for it. Crowley did not keep copies of his early letters to the above-mentioned lady, so was unable to include them in the collection that he planned to publish. Fortunately, they've been preserved and are now included in the introduction to this book, and I'm going to share a couple of those with you. Their original form has been retained with the opening and closing formulas which Crowley used in all his letters. That's do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and love is the law, love under will. Crowley at first intended to call this book Aleister Explains Everything, and sent the following circular to his friends and disciples, asking them to suggest subjects for inclusion. And I'm going to not read that big long thing, but he's already sending things out to his fans, inviting more letters. So I'm going to read you, skipping ahead here. There's all sorts of letters, and they're under the broad categories. I'm trying to find the what is magic, the necessity of magic for all, hieroglyphs, life and language necessarily symbolic, The Kabbalah, best training of the mind. The universe, the 0 = 2 equation. 3 schools of magic, part 1, 2, and 3. Sex and morality, talismans, the Laman, my theory of astrology, improvising a temple, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there are 80 some little chapters, and some of them are quite lengthy. But I just want to share this opening with you. This is in 1943, March 1943. Now, England's pretty damn deep into the war, World War II at this time. Crowley's getting on in age. He'll be dead in 4 years. I believe he was at Netherwood. And as a matter of fact, I believe the manuscript for Alistair Explains Everything was under his bed at the boarding house that he was where he died. But anyway, he starts it all off. Cara Soror, dear sister, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I was very glad to gather from your conversation yesterday afternoon that you have a serious intention of taking up the great work in the proper spirit. Your criticisms of previous experience in the course of your adventures appear to be singularly sane and just. As promised, I'm writing this letter to cover a few practical points which we had not time to discuss, and which in any case I think it better to arrange by correspondence. 1. It is the first importance that you should understand my personal position. It is not actually wrong to regard me as a teacher, but it is certainly liable to mislead fellow student, or, if you like, fellow sufferer, seems a more appropriate definition. The climax of my life was what is known as the Cairo working, described in the minutest detail in the Equinox of the Gods. At that time, most of the Book of the Law was completely unintelligible to me, and a good deal of it, especially the 3rd chapter, extremely antipathetic. I fought against this book for years, but it proved irresistible. I do not think I'm boasting unfairly when I say that my personal researches have been of the greatest value and importance to the study of the subject of magic and mysticism in general, especially my integration of the various thought systems of the world, notably the identification of the system of the I Ching with that of the Kabbalah. But I do assure you that the whole of my life's work, were it multiplied 1,000-fold, would not be worth 1/10 of the value of a single verse of the Book of the Law. I think you should have a copy of the Equinox of the Gods, and make the Book of the Law your constant study. Now I'm going to digress for a second here, because just in the last few weeks, there was a spirited debate over online over someone who was criticizing another person for studying the Book of the Law, as if, well, actually the Class A document says the study of this book is forbidden. And so he was taking an OTO body master to task for actually having classes on the Book of the Law, things like that. and that statement, the study of this book is forbidden, must have another nuance to it than don't study the book of the law. And here, late in life, shortly even before his death, he's telling a new student, make the book of the law your constant study. Such value as my own work may possess for you should amount to no more than an aid to the interpretation of this book. So in other words, don't even trust my suggestions toward interpretations, okay? It may be that later on you will want a copy of 8 lectures on yoga, and so I'm putting a copy aside for you in case you should want it. Now, here, this is very interesting because now the OTO is an international organization with grand lodges in multiple countries around the world, with thousands of members doing the wonderful elaborate degree ceremonies and Gnostic masses and publication projects. I mean, the OTO is arguably the biggest overtly magical organization in the world. But at this time, the OTO and a small group of people in 1943 in Southern California, the OTO was a pretty private phenomena. With regard to the OTO, I believe I can find you a typescript of all the official documents. If so, I will let you have them to read, and you can make up your mind as to whether you wish to affiliate to the 3rd degree. Now, the 3rd degree has there are sub-degrees after the ceremony or the initiation ritual that's called the 3rd degree, which it's a long story. There's only 3 degrees in the OTO: the hermit, the lover, and the man of earth. So he's talking about the 3rd degree, the end of the Man of Earth series. I should consequently, in the case of your deciding to affiliate, go with you through the script of the rituals and explain the meaning of the whole thing, communicating, in addition, the real secret and significant knowledge of which ordinary masonry is not possessed. Number 4, the horoscope. I do not like doing these at all, but it is a part of the agreement with the Grand Treasurer, that's Carl Germer, of the OTO, that I should undertake them in worthy cases if pressed. But I prefer to keep the figure to myself for future reference in case any significant event makes consultation desirable. And when I first came under the tutelage of Soror Merrill, first thing she did was, well, even before that, even before she would answer my letters, before I was in the OTO or anything, she said, "We don't know anything about you. Send us a resume, and I want your full birth information." And I had to send all of that in before she'd even consider writing me back. And I sent her off my birth information. I guess it indicated that I'm not a mass murderer or something. So only then, and she was a good astrologer, by the way. Okay. Now there is one really important matter. The only thing besides the book of the law, which is in the forefront of the battle, As I told you yesterday, the first essential is the dedication of all that one is and all that one has to the great work, without reservation of any sort. This must be kept constantly in mind. And the way to do this is to practice Liber Resh Vel Helios. That's those 4 solar adorations. There's another version of the adoration, slightly fuller, but those in the text are quite right. The important thing is not to forget. I shall have to teach you the signs and gestures which go with the words. It is also desirable before beginning a formal meal to go through the following dialogue. Knock. And say, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Person at the other end of the table replies, what is thy will? It is my will to eat and drink. To what end? That my body may be fortified thereby. To what end? That I may accomplish the great work. Love is the law, love under will. Fall 2. When alone, make a monologue of it, thus. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It is my will to eat and drink, that my body may be fortified thereby, that I may accomplish the great work. Love's the law, love under will. And begin to eat. Now, it's impossible to exaggerate the importance of performing these small ceremonies regularly, and being as nearly accurate as possible with regard to the times. You must not mind stopping in the middle of a crowded thoroughfare, lorries or no lorries, and saying the adorations. And you must not mind snubbing your guest or your host if he or she should prove ignorant of his or her share of the dialogue. It is perhaps because these matters are so petty and trivial in appearance that they afford so excellent a training. They teach you concentration, mindfulness, moral and social courage, and a host of other virtues. Like a perfect lady, I have kept the titbit to the last. This is absolutely essential to begin a magical diary, and keep it up daily. You begin by an account of your life, going back even before your birth or to your ancestry. In conformity with the practice, you may perhaps choose to adopt later, given in Liber Thesharb, you must find an answer to the question, how did I come to be in this place at this time? I'm going to say that again. You want to get yourself to a place where you actually, sincerely want to know, how did I come to this place at this time, engaged in this particular work? As you will see from the book, this will start you on the discovery of who you really are, and eventually lead you to recovering the memory of previous incarnations. As it is difficult for you to come to town, except at rare and irregular intervals, he may still have been at 93 German Street here. I stand corrected earlier. May I suggest a plan which has previously proved very useful, and that is a weekly letter. Eliphas Levi did this with the Baron Spedadellari, and the correspondence is one of the most interesting of his works. You ask such questions as you wish to have answered, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. I, of course, add spontaneous remarks, digressions, which may be elicited by my observations of your progress and the perusal of your magical diary. This, of course, should be written on one side of the paper only. Okay, so if you got a diary book, you write on the right-hand side, and Crowley will, when he reviews your diary, your teacher puts the notes on the left-hand facing page. Mine mostly included corrections and spellings. This, of course, should be written on one side of the paper only so that the opposite page is free for comments, and an arrangement should be made for it to be inspected at regular intervals. Love is a law, love under will, fraternally 666. That was in this edition, that was called letter A. And it's included in the introduction of Magick Without Tears. What time do we have here? I'm going to read letter B because it's very short. Kara Soror. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I was very glad to have your letter, and I'm very sorry to hear you have been in affliction. About the delay, however, I think I ought to tell you that the original rule of the AA is that the introducer read over a short lection to the applicant. I believe that's Liber 13. Then left him alone for a quarter of an hour. And on coming back, receive a yes or a no. And I think the actual line in the thing is pause and consider something, for only once does the great order knock, or words to that event. Then you sit alone, maybe in the dark for 15 minutes, and they come back. Well, do you want to do it? Okay. The reason for the relaxation of this rule was that it was thought better to help people along in the early stages of the work, even if there was no hope of it turning out first class. But I should like you to realize that sooner or later, whether in this incarnation or another, it is put up to you to show perfect courage in the face of a completely unknown, and the power of rapid and irrevocable decision without counting the cost. Now, this is where, I'm digressing here, where people object to the oaths, sometimes terrible, blood-curdling oaths that one takes in initiation ceremonies. Now, face it. I mean, you've gone to a great deal of trouble to get yourself into the position of taking an initiation in the Masons or the OTO or any Golden Dawn. You've gone to a lot of trouble. You've paid dues in advance and things like that, and I've gone on through all sorts of a vetting process to get yourself standing there before the altar, and sometimes you're blindfolded and tied up and kind of scared, and then you take an oath, repeat after me, you know. Take out your wallet and repeat after me. Help yourself. No, but you'd say, and I promise this and that, and I swear that I am a character I've never understood. Well, who, what, you know? And if I break this oath, may my pee-pee be torn off from and shoved in my ear, and you go, what? Okay, forever. Like Scientology makes you sign a thing for 10 billion years or something. You go, whoa. Not that I endorse that practice. Okay. But here it is. Okay. I think I'd like you to realize that sooner or later, whether in this incarnation or another, it's put up to you to show perfect courage in the face of completely unknown and the power of a rapid and irrevocable decision without counting the cost. And I've also told the story, I think, repeated by Eliphas Levi, the rites of Mendes. You take this terrible oath while blindfolded after you've leaped through fire and walked through water and stuff like that. And they take the blindfolds off, and all the characters are dressed up like the equivalent of Satanists or black magic. You think you're joining Osiris and the gods of light, and everybody's dressed up in snake and crocodile suits and set costumes. You go, oh God, is this Wednesday night? I think I just stumbled into the wrong group. No. You go ahead, just like Crowley says here. You say, well, whatever this is, I've gotten myself to this point. If it's wrong, I'm going to make it right. And so those are like little mini abyss crossings. Mini abyss crossings for you to actually take your next step. And you can, of course, peter out. In all my years of officiating at initiation ceremonies, only once out of 1,000, I guess, at least, many hundreds of individuals and thousands of rituals, has somebody said, now, what do you mean by that? And another officer started to explain, and I said, no. Don't explain. Explanation's not in the ritual. Explanation. This is a yes or no moment. And the candidate said, well, if you mean by, I said, no. Is it your will to And I absolutely respect their tenacity and their unwillingness to feel so uncomfortable that they couldn't do it. And I stopped the ritual and said, thank you very much. We're going to, the worthy wazir here is going to escort you back to the preparation room. And we want you to gather up your stuff and leave the temple. Only once in many, many years have I had to do that. And I can't say that that person failed. They certainly postponed for themselves that opportunity for such a mini abyss crossing like that. I think it altogether wrong to allow yourself to be worried by, quote, psychological, moral, and artistic problems, unquote. I guess she wrote about that. It's no good you're starting anything of any kind unless you can see clearly into the simplicity of the truth. All this humming and hawing about things is moral poison. What is the use of being a woman if you have not got an intuition, an instinct enabling you to distinguish between the genuine and the sham? Your state of mind suggests to me that you must have been, in the past, under the influence of people who were always talking about things and never doing any real work. They kept on arguing all sorts of obscure philosophical points. That is all very well, but when you have succeeded in analyzing your reactions, you'll understand that all this talk is just an excuse for not doing any serious work. I'm confirmed in this judgment by your saying, quote, I don't know if I want to enter into a great conflict. I need peace, unquote. Fortunately, you save yourself by adding, quote, real peace, that is, living and not stagnant, unquote. All life is conflict. Every breath that you draw represents a victory in the struggle of the whole universe. You can't have peace without perfect mastery of circumstance. And I take it that this is what you mean by living, not stagnant. But it is of first consequence for you to summon up the resolution to stamp out this sea of swirling thoughts by an act of will. You must say, quote, peace, be still. The moment you have understood these thoughts for what they are, tools of the enemy invented by him with an idea of preventing you from undertaking the great work, the moment you dismiss all such considerations firmly and decisively and say, what must I do? And having discovered that, set to work to do it. Allowing of no interruption, you will find that living peace which you seem to see is a dynamic and not static condition. There's quite a lot about this in little essays of truth, of course. Okay, that's where I'm going to end that today. There are really cool things that carry this forward in the third letter here, which actually I'm going to read to you tomorrow, because this has been fun, and it's been years since I've reviewed this wonderful wisdom. This is Crowley at the end of his life, where he's putting things in perspective and is being quite casually frank about things that he might have earlier in his magical career might have been more obscure in his in his level of well, he's cutting through the bullshit at this time of his life. Anyway, that's it for today. Again, the book is Magick Without Tears. Hopefully someday there'll be a nice big thick thing with all the letters to him and everything else, but at the moment I'm 75 years old and I enjoy at least what we've got here. Okay, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.